All right, guys, so I'm here to talk about ActivityPub and Nostr. Nostr is not the only decentralized social media protocol. In fact, there's a handful of them up on this screen here, some living, some dead. But for the purposes of this talk, we're going to be focusing primarily on Nostr, a little bit of Blue Sky, and ActivityPub, as well as how they all connect together and what it means for Nostr. So ActivityPub has had a pretty great year. It's more than doubled its size in the past year alone, going from 5 million to over 12 million users. And Nostr has had a pretty great year too, but for us, this is like our second year, whereas for ActivityPub, this is like its 10th year, when you consider its evolution from O status into ActivityPub, its standardization by the W3C, the various apps that have been developed, and the communities that have been built. And all of that has laid the groundwork for what I'm about to talk about next, which is the reason why we have seen all of this growth in the past year. And the reason is Elon Musk. Because when Elon Musk bought Twitter, millions of users fled to decentralized platforms. So much so that the man even created a rule banning links being posted to decentralized platforms, including Mastodon and Nostr. Do you guys remember that? Yes. And I benefited as well from this big wave in my ActivityPub software I develop called Soapbox. And Soapbox is a competitor to Mastodon with some important new features such as emoji reactions and quote posts and an improved UI. But while it may have been the biggest wave that ActivityPub has ever seen, it is not the biggest wave that Soapbox has ever seen. And in order to understand that, first we have to rewind time and remember the full story. Donald Trump. When Donald Trump got banned off of Twitter, there was a huge wave to the Fediverse, and in particular to Soapbox servers. And the team behind Truth Social reached out to me and asked for my help with building it, to which I agreed. Now, Truth Social is still running a modified version of Soapbox today. But as for me, thanks to funding from OpenSats, I was able to quit my job working at Truth Social, and I'm now back to developing Soapbox independently again and connecting it with Nostr. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In fact, I'm in the process of moving all of my years of work of ActivityPub onto Nostr, including Soapbox. But first, I wanted to build something simpler. I wanted to build something that would just connect the two protocols together. And so I built the Mostr Bridge. And the Mostr Bridge connects ActivityPub and Nostr together so that users can seamlessly communicate across protocols. And I'm going to tell you guys how the bridge works. But first, I want to finish talking about why. Why does bridging matter? So here's that same graph from earlier, but this time it also includes Twitter user counts. And as you can see, despite all of our growth in the past year, we are still just completely diminished by Twitter. But I had a realization, which is that we are poaching Twitter users. And that is, in fact, the reason why Elon Musk was so concerned about posting links to decentralized platforms, because he believes that it is a threat, and it, in fact, is a threat. And a good thing about having three completely separate protocols is that there's a diversity of initiatives, because people want to leave Twitter for different reasons. And so we have different teams, different goals, different visions, and so we can attract different people off of Twitter into the decentralized world for different reasons. But the downside and the negative and the bad thing about having three completely separate protocols is fragmentation. Because the most valuable asset of a social network is its user base. And if I join a website and I can't find the users that I want to talk to, then it doesn't matter how good the software is. There's no reason for me to stay. And then someone who comes after me might want to hear what I had to say, but then they won't stay. That's the network effect, or at least that's the inverse of it. And of course, the same is also true going in the other direction for growth as well. So what if we could combine these three user bases? right? Then we would have the best of both worlds. We would have the diversity of initiatives to attract people for different reasons, and we would have the combined user base to have the network effect. And that is the goal of the Mostr Bridge, at least to connect ActivityPub to Nostr, because I believe, coming from ActivityPub, that Nostr is the future. But believing is not enough. We have to create the future that we believe in. And in the words of Hillary Clinton, don't let your memes be dreams. All right, guys. So now we're going to get into the technical part of how this all works. So the bridge is an ActivityPub server and a Nostr client. At a high level, the bridge works by taking ActivityPub objects, translating them into Nostr events in real time, and then publishing them over WebSocket to the relay at relay.mostr.pub. It is a stir-fry instance. And then going in the other direction, Nostr clients talk to the relay as they normally would, while the Mostr Bridge has a Firehose filter open, and it is reading the events that are being sent to it from clients, and then deciding whether it is eligible to be federated, and if so, it federates them out to ActivityPub servers. And that eligibility check generally includes whether there's a follower relationship that exists between users across protocols. So these are the endpoints that are implemented by the bridge, and this is what makes the bridge an ActivityPub server. The most important one is that you can post to its inbox. And that is what other ActivityPub servers use to deliver messages to it. Now, the other ones, you can get a user by pub key, and you can get ActivityPub object by event ID. And these ones use a pool of relays of some of the most popular ones on Nostr so that it can find them more easily. And then the last one, WebFinger, is a username lookup. That's very similar to NIP05. This table right here shows the translation between Nostr events and ActivityPub objects. And as you can see, it's pretty much one-to-one, which is very convenient. And I think that's because the way that people think about the social media data model is the same. But one difference is with the kind3 and the follow, because the follow is atomic in ActivityPub, whereas it's a big list in Nostr. So in order to reconcile that, I had to create a table that stores the follows. And so because of all of this, the Mostr Bridge is considered just another server in the Fediverse. All of the other ActivityPub servers just see it as another ActivityPub server. And one of the big questions that people have been asking me a lot lately is Nostr part of the Fediverse? So I'll take a step back and I'll define some terms since I've been throwing them out. And so ActivityPub is the name of the specification created by the W3C, whereas Fediverse is the name of the network of ActivityPub and its overlapping protocols. So because of some precedent on the Fediverse of protocols like Diaspora being considered part of the Fediverse and other bridges, I would say that yes, Nostr is part of the Fediverse. Welcome to the Fediverse. All right, now keys and IDs. So in ActivityPub, IDs are URLs. They are tied to a particular server. Whereas on Nostr, pub keys are generated out of thin air. It's a public-private key cryptography, and then event IDs are a content hash of the event. So it's very easy to go from Nostr IDs to ActivityPub IDs because we can simply take that hash and then put it into the URL. Going in the other direction is a bit more of a question, because how do we take this URL and then turn it into a pub key? And the way that I decided upon doing that I think works the best is with deterministic keys. And so there's a secret key that's on the server that gets combined with the ActivityPub ID, and then that is used as a seed to produce this deterministic pub key. But going in the other direction, doing reverse lookups is a thing that we sometimes have to do. And so there is a database table that exists for reverse lookups. I'll talk about that a little bit later. OK, so the bridge is written in TypeScript, and it is using Deno as its runtime. Deno is similar to Node.js. It's created by the same guy who created Node.js to solve problems with Node and to solve issues with baggage that have kind of grown over the years with Node. And in fact, Deno is the syllables of Node backwards. If you look at this HTOP screenshot here, you can see that the bridge is using less than 500 megabytes of RAM. That includes the entire operating system. It's barely touching those 2 CPU cores. And the performance of it is partly because of Dino and partly because of the architecture of the bridge itself and the certain trade-offs that I have made. So one of my initial goals with this project was to not use a database at all. And the reason why that's something that's even on the table is because of the existing infrastructure in ActivityPub and Nostr, right? So it's leaning a lot on implementations of ActivityPub, such as Mastodon, Pleroma, Miski. And then on the Nostr side, it's leaning a lot on relay instances such as stir-fry. And because those are good, because Mastodon is good, because stir-fry is good, all the relay has to do, or all the bridge has to do, is take these events and translate them in real time and just make sure it sends them to the right place. And then the existing infrastructure on each of these protocols does most of the rest of the work. So I did end up needing to make a small compromise on my no database policy, though, because of the reverse lookups that I described earlier, and also because of follow. So there's 2 tiny little tables that exist. They have basically no performance impact. And overall, I would say that this bridge is like water. It's a whisper to my system. It requires basically no resources to continue running, which is great. And yeah. OK. Now it's time for some audience participation. So I'm curious who you guys think are the most popular people across protocols. First up, I'm going to ask you about Nostr. Who on Nostr do you think that ActivityPub people are following the most? Please shout out answers for me. Let's hear it. I hear Jack. I hear Alex. I hear Fiat Jeff. I hear Snowden. I hear Elon. All right. I think I've heard enough. You guys ready? Drum roll, please. It's Snowden! Yes, you'll be hearing from him later today. And it's no surprise, not just because of his popularity, but because ActivityPub people are very much concerned with privacy. All right, next up, same question in reverse. So who on ActivityPub are people on Nostr following the most? Any guesses? Shout it out for me. Hillary. Eugen. I don't know who that is. All right, I've heard enough. You guys ready? Drum roll, please. It's me! Thank you for subscribing to my shitpost. It's been a pleasure getting to know all of you. I'm vegan, by the way. All right, honorable mentions. So these are some people. For the ActivityPub people at home who are watching, please give a follow to Jack, to Fiat Jeff, to JB55. And for the Nostr people in this room, you may want to consider following Richard Stallman, Linus Torvalds, and Bill Ottman on the ActivityPub end. All right, let's talk about some numbers. So we've got over 46,000 follows total across the bridge. That includes from both protocols. But as you can see from this graph here, there's a lot more follows coming from Nostr than coming from ActivityPub. And that, to me, shows that Nostr users are the ones who are really utilizing this bridge the most. And it indicates a desire for Nostr users to be connecting outside of the protocol. And so I consider this project to be a great success for that reason. But to achieve that success, we had to overcome some obstacles, and some obstacles that are still existing, and we'll talk about some of those. So first up is spam. And you know, when I first created the bridge, I had heard some complaints from other relay operators that they're just getting overwhelmed with spam constantly. But for the first 2 weeks, it was really not an issue at all, to my pleasant surprise. But then, of course, inevitably, at some point, I had a user start complaining to me, and then the bridge went down. And it turns out that it had run out of disk space. So I went ahead and I moved the stir-fry server to a separate server from the bridge, so the bridge itself would be unaffected by that in the future. And then I started looking into some of that spam and seeing what it was. And what I found was the same message being repeated over and over and over and over again, coming from different pub keys. And they all contained a link to a Telegram room. So what did I do? I joined that Telegram room. And I posted the event into that room, and I wrote, "Stop spamming my relay, stop spamming my relay, stop spamming my relay." And I hit Control-V, Enter, Control-V, Enter, Control-V, Enter. And one of the people in that room replied to me and wrote, "Fuck, stop." And I didn't. And I kept sending it over and over and over again. And then you know what happened? They banned me from the Telegram room. And that's okay, because I didn't have the power in that situation, they did. And so I decided that I needed to have the power in that situation. And so I created a library called Stir-Fry Policies. And fortunately, because Stir-Fry is the great software that it is, and it doesn't make a lot of assumptions about how you want to moderate things, it has a plug-in policy system where people can write plugins in any programming language and drop it in. So of course, I wrote mine in TypeScript with Dino. And the first thing I did was I wrote a policy for anti-duplication. And so a great thing about this whole setup here is that this is not just one policy, this is a framework for creating policies. Because as many of you know who have dealt with spam, it's an endless cat and mouse game, right? So you stop some spam, and then the spammers get more sophisticated, and then they end up being the ones who have the advantage, have the upper hand. And so you need like a system to be able to create new anti-spam mechanisms and put them in place. And so this library has a pipeline where the Stir-Fry plugin, it accepts an event as an input, and then it wants you to say whether the event is accepted or rejected. And so this pipeline lets you chain multiple policies together, and then if any one rejects, it rejects the event. And since it's this flexible system, then we can create new policies, we can test them, we can roll them out, we can see whether it works or not very easily. And that's going to be something that's going to help us fight spam a lot in the future. Thank you very much. And so that's spam. Next up, let's talk about usernames, because I know this is a big problem facing people on ActivityPub in particular. So I need to take a step back and explain that on Nostr, you can change your username. And I consider the nip05 to be the username, right? And in the ActivityPub spec, you can also change your username. But in Mastodon, you cannot change your username. And not just in Mastodon, but if a different ActivityPub server changes the name, then their whole profile becomes corrupted on all Mastodon servers. And this is an issue that Mastodon people are aware of, and they have spoken about it publicly, and they say that it is so ingrained in the design of their system, it's something that is likely never going to change. So can't change usernames, and since you can change them on Nostr, there's simply no way to get around this. We have to have a stable identifier across the bridge, and of course that is the pub key. So what you get on the Mastodon side, on the ActivityPub side, is the 64-character hex pub key in all of its glory. And so, you know, a goal of the bridge is not to try to push standards forward or try to force Mastodon to do anything. It's to try to make things work as they currently are, and Mastodon is the biggest ActivityPub implementation that exists, so we have to deal with that, right? However, what we can do is we can do things instead of in the protocol level in the UI. So in Soapbox, what I've done is I've simply truncated the first 8 characters, and you can roll your mouse over it, and then it shows you the full pub key. It's a huge improvement. And I'm working on some more stuff in the future that's going to make this even better. All right, now let's talk about defederation. I see Will over here with a big grin on his face because he knows how crazy this is. Okay, so another complaint that I've received is that people in ActivityPub are blocking the bridge, and so that prevents people on Nostr from being able to interact with them. And that is a thing that you can do in ActivityPub. Servers can block other servers. And so far, 327 servers have blocked the Mostr Bridge, or essentially have blocked Nostr, according to the FediBlock API. However, I would like people to understand that this is essentially a rite of passage for ActivityPub. Okay, if you join the Fediverse and you don't get blocked at least a little bit, it's like you didn't even exist. And 327 servers in the grand scheme of things is not a lot because there are over 10,000 on the Fediverse. And you know, I've heard complaints from people from both sides, actually, on ActivityPub and Nostr. I've heard people say that they're not sending their best. But I think that there are some very fine people on both sides. So let's delve into it a little bit, shall we? This one is another audience participation, but let me explain the rules a little bit first. So on ActivityPub, servers can block other servers. And when they do so, they can write a public message describing why they have blocked a server, okay? And all 4 of these reasons are a reason that a server on ActivityPub has blocked a server on ActivityPub. But only one of them is a reason why a server has blocked Nostr. So I'll go through them. All right. A, insufficient moderation. B, spam crypto advertising. C, Twitter people. Or D, hate speech spelled incorrectly. So just call it out for me. All right. A, B, C, or D. What do you think? B. I hear B. A. I hear A. C. I hear C. All right, here, D. I've heard enough. All right, guys, let's go through them one at a time. You ready? Okay. A, insufficient moderation. This is actually a reason why a server has blocked Mastodon.social. Mastodon.social is the flagship Mastodon server created by the developers of Mastodon, and it is very heavy-handed on moderation and censorship. So it's pretty ironic that a server has blocked Mastodon.social for insufficient moderation. Okay. B, spam crypto advertising. This is actually a reason that a server has blocked Mastodon.social. Mastodon.social hates Bitcoin, so it's pretty ironic that a server has blocked Mastodon.social for this reason. C, Twitter people. This is actually a reason that a server has blocked Mastodon.social, which is pretty interesting considering that Rabble and Jack Dorsey are here in this room. And the answer, of course, is D, hate speech spelled incorrectly. All of the other 3 are reasons why servers have blocked Mastodon.social. And now that you've heard one reason why ActivityPub has blocked Nostr, I'm sure you're curious to hear some other reasons. So let's go through a few of these, shall we? These are reasons why ActivityPub servers have blocked Nostr, real reasons this time. All right, so we've got moderation/safety concerns. We've got spam. We've got bridge to racist board. We've got toxicity, harassment. Remember, this is reasons why ActivityPub is blocking Nostr. We've got crypto. We've got alt-right. And finally, we've got, I don't know if people even use Nostr anymore, but I've generally had bad experiences with those who have. I think we can all agree that it's pretty unfair to judge an entire protocol by the actions of a few. Because this is our shared goal, a decentralized future. And one of the biggest things that's been holding ActivityPub back from achieving even more is the blocking culture around it. And I just want to make sure that at Nostr, we don't fall into this same trap. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So looking towards the future, I'm building a new piece of software called Ditto that will connect Nostr and ActivityPub even more. And Ditto is a community relay server, okay? It's very similar in concept to how ActivityPub works, to where you can have like knitting server, you can have sports server, you can have political server, but it's much better suited to Nostr to do this type of thing, because in ActivityPub, when you do it, the users are locked into that particular niche or interest, whereas on Nostr, you can be a member of multiple communities at once. So Ditto is a type of thing that will bring that sort of paradigm that has led to much of the success of ActivityPub and bring that to Nostr. And it is also a hybrid server that can speak both Nostr and ActivityPub. All right, I'm almost finished with my talk here, but I just wanted to make one more quick note because I know a lot of people are going to have questions about this, which is what about Blue Sky? So I am not working on Blue Sky right now. However, somebody else is. And if you take a look at the BridgeFed project, they have made some great progress on connecting ActivityPub with Blue Sky. And you can find accounts and you can follow people through BridgeFed. And what's even cooler is that without making any changes to the Mostr Bridge, it is now possible for users on Nostr to discover users on Blue Sky by going from Nostr to Mostr through ActivityPub, through BridgieFed, to Blue Sky, and all the way back. And I think that that is very cool. The future of decentralized social media will be connected. Thank you very much. All right, I'll be here all day today. Feel free to come and find me. Here's how you can get in touch with me.
Questions for Alex? Yes, Rabble.
You forgot my favorite reason, and I think the most popular reason for Mostr being defederated, which was that it was from you. Like, Alex Gleason was like the most common listed name.
Alex Gleason, the dangerous person.
My question is how is it going to work with Ditto for existing Nostr users to be able to use that bridge? And what are your thoughts in terms of community groups, relays, and Ditto as a way of structuring groups?
Yeah, so there's an interesting technical challenge about duplication, and I authored a NIP, I believe it's 48, that allows events to be tagged with their ActivityPub ID. And so Ditto is going to try to deduplicate content between other Ditto servers and between the bridge.
Is Mostr going to use that too?
It won't have to use it because it doesn't. It's just going to drop anything that has that tag. It already does.
Do we have another question from the audience? Yes.
Hi, Alex. This is Lotta Day.
Hey.
So I just added your relay to my profile. So does that mean now I'll be able to see any posts from ActivityPub on any Nostr client, or how does it work?
Yes.
Exactly?
So that basically means that you're now connected to the bridge, and so if you author events, then it will potentially be eligible to be federated out to ActivityPub servers. And so people can find and discover you and follow you, and then you'll be able to go in both directions. But you should try to find someone on ActivityPub to follow. If you scan this QR code, that'll send you to me. So give me a follow through the bridge, and then that'll make it work better.
Awesome. Thank you.
Will.
So I have two questions. One is I notice when I message people on ActivityPub from Nostr, they don't seem to respond. Are they getting my messages, or are they just because it's blocked?
Great question. They are not getting your messages, and that is because there's not like a one-to-one between NIP04 type encryption stuff with ActivityPub, because in ActivityPub, people don't control their keys. The server controls their keys. And so there is potentially something that could be done there, but it just didn't seem right or make sense, and so I haven't done it. So
I mean, just like threads, like replying to their posts.
Oh, replying to posts? No, people should be able to see that, for sure. I see your posts.
Okay, and another thing is, since it sounds like it's deterministic from the instance, because you have a secret that's generating in the inverse direction.
Yeah.
Does that mean if I wanted to create my own Mostr Pub instance, then there would be like duplicate users on the Nostr side for ActivityPub people, or?
So the bridge is going to, like each account on the bridge is going to be a mirror of an account on Nostr. I'm not sure I understand.
So you'd see like duplicate Nostr users if there's more than one bridge.
Oh, if there's more than one bridge, right. So that's what NIP48 ideally is supposed to solve. It will deal with duplication because the ActivityPub ID will be the same even though the pub keys are different. And it's kind of similar to like a parameterized replaceable events type of thing where you're using a particular tag to deduplicate content. And obviously that's a technical challenge, but that is what Ditto is going to do. Cool. All right, thank you very much, guys.
One more.
So in Mastodon, they normally just block everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, my instance was blocked by everyone. So
Same.
Do you think you're going to end up there too with Ditto? Like it's just going to get blocked by everyone?
Well, I mean, a good thing about Ditto is that it offers second chances, right? Because people who are blocking the bridge are blocking Nostr basically entirely. But on Ditto, there's going to be sub-communities of Nostr that people will have to individually block those.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that it'll actually improve that situation. But, we're all here because we want freedom, and that includes the freedom for people to block even when it's stupid. So, of course, it's their right to block, and we just basically deal with that.
We just got to make mute great again.
Yeah, make mute great again. All right. Thank you guys very much.